In May 2006, Chef Ramsay headed to Woolton, a trendy suburb of Liverpool in the UK. Owner Sandy Morgan and her two daughters, Laura and Helen, are the all-female team behind their family-run restaurant. Or, as Gordon put it in his iconic introduction,
how many women does it take to run a restaurant badly? 3, if it's called Morgan's.
Sandy had previously run an antique store in the building, but because she enjoyed cooking for friends, she decided to become a restaurateur. The change hadn't gone as smoothly as she had hoped, and the restaurant was struggling with a lack of customers and mounting debt. Sandy owed £100,000 and had just 6 months to turn the restaurant around financially, or she risked losing the business. Gordon arrives in a traditional British black cab and is impressed by the curbside appeal of the restaurant, which looks cozy and inviting. He warmly greets the family and asks who is running the business.
We all do. There's three of us taking responsibility for maybe one job.
Gordon takes a seat in the dining room and checks out the menu, which he describes as weird. Head chef Phil has created dishes featuring elements of multiple cuisines, often combined on a single plate. Chef Ramsay starts with rock-hard pan-fried prawns, followed by a huge portion of Cumberland sausage.
This dish is big enough for a dinosaur.
It's like something out of Jurassic Park. Fucking hell.
The dish is stodgy and overpriced, and the mashed potatoes flavored with apricot. Not a well-known combination, and for good reason. For dessert, Gordon orders sticky toffee pudding, which is the only dish created and prepared with great care by the sous chef. Phil believes that the classic dessert shouldn't be on his menu, but Gordon is impressed for the first time and actually enjoys the light, fluffy pudding. Heading back to the kitchen, Gordon meets the team to give them his feedback. His criticism of the mashed potato is met by laughter from Chef Phil, much to Gordon's irritation. Admitting he took the dish from Good Food magazine, the chef defends his cooking, saying that it's a bit different.
You've got every right to be slightly fucked off about it. Because I would be if I cooked that shit.
Chef Ramsay tells him that his attitude stinks and that he's unable to take criticism. An aggravated Phil asks Gordon to speak to him in a less confrontational style and accuses him of arrogance.
Now fucking Mr. Chipmunk in the fucking corner's pissed off the fact that I'm telling him something constructive.
When he announces that the only positive about the entire meal was the delicious sticky toffee pudding, Phil storms out of the kitchen, cursing and covering the camera. Gordon thinks that the restaurant building is beautiful and believes it has great potential if they can overcome the food issues. But the confused management system is also a big problem. Sitting down to study the accounts, which are kept on a tiny desk in Sandy's home, Gordon discovers that they've made no money in 3 years. Her chaotic bookkeeping means she is unaware of her target income and only has a loose understanding of the financial situation. Returning to the kitchen, Gordon discovers that overconfident Chef Phil has never had any formal training. However, he sympathizes when Phil reveals he isn't paid for his preparation time, so he can only arrive a couple of hours before service to get ready. With just 2 hours before customers start arriving, Phil is putting together a list of ingredients he will need for that evening, and Sandy prepares to go to the local supermarket to get them. Gordon goes with her. Following her with a shopping cart, Chef Ramsay brands the last-minute panic buying as ridiculous, and points out that paying retail prices is an unnecessary extra expense. As the restaurant starts to fill up, Gordon gets ready to watch the kitchen team during the busiest service of the week, Saturday night. Worried by Phil's lack of concentration and careless cooking style, Gordon is unhappy with the standard dishes leaving the kitchen, and sure enough, food starts to come back. Sandy, who should be in charge, is found helping out by washing dishes. Unfortunately, while she was interfering with other people's jobs, she missed a customer's order, and the rest of his table has now finished eating. Sandy is convinced that the diner is happy to wait. Gordon assures her that he isn't, and tells her the organization is shambolic. He realizes that Sandy is an amateur restaurateur, and a big part of the problem at Morgan's. Gordon pushes her to admit the restaurant's issues and take responsibility, which she doesn't. Daughter Helen is honest about the service, calling it diabolical, to Ramsay's obvious relief. To tackle the lack of clear management, Gordon feels he must give the manager's role to one of the sisters, who are both keen to take charge of the business. He heads to the playground in the hope that it will remind the family to stop their childish bickering. He starts by telling Sandy that she isn't capable of managing the restaurant herself.
What's your role?
General manager, front of house.
Bollocks. No chance.
He gives Sandy the role of host, which she is happy with, and asks Laura to take the job of assistant manager, supporting her sister Helen in the manager's role. A furious Laura storms off, telling Gordon to stick his sticker badge, and has what can only be described as a childish tantrum while her family watches on from the swing set. Gordon goes out to canvass local opinions on the restaurant's food and prices, with some responses more helpful than others.
And how much do you expect to pay for dinner? What would you be happy with?
As I'm paying, my boyfriends will pay.
Gordon's plan to overhaul the menu is based on using fresh, local produce to create simple yet tasty dishes. He heads to a nearby organic farmer's market and sources local lamb steaks. Heading back to the kitchen, Gordon teaches Phil to prepare the dish for Sunday lunch the next day and gives it a more reasonable price tag. Morgan's doesn't usually open for lunch on a Sunday, one of the busiest days of the week for Brits to eat out. Assistant manager Laura is due to run the service, but when Gordon arrives at the restaurant, she is nowhere to be found. Host Sandy is missing too. There is no reservation list or table plan, and the two-man kitchen team is on their own. At 12:45, Gordon calls Laura, who doesn't pick up. He heads to Sandy's house, and she won't open the door. Back at the restaurant, Laura finally arrives, without the table plan. And despite Gordon having been there for 3 hours looking for it while she was at home in bed, she tries to blame him for the book being missing.
Is this because things ran quite smoothly last night, so it's like a ploy to sort of mess things up?
He calls her out on her laziness and bad attitude, and once again, she walks out. With a fully booked restaurant, Gordon is forced to call Helen on her day off to come in and sort out the mess. Until she arrives, Gordon oversees both the kitchen and the front of the house, even briefly returning to his first ever restaurant role waiting tables. Helen arrives and jumps straight in. Gordon heads back to the kitchen, where Phil has once again lost concentration and is serving overcooked dishes. His sous chef, however, is quickly and quietly plating up perfect meals. When Sandy finally arrives, having been at home feeling unwell, Gordon shares his frustration and insists that if Chef Phil can't step up, he needs to be fired. To relaunch Morgan's within the community, Gordon plans to invite some local celebrities to attract the wealthy ladies who lunched. He puts together some tasty and healthy dishes, and once again notices a sous chef's talent and potential, telling her she could run the restaurant one day. To keep Sandy busy, and out of other people's way, Gordon suggests auctioning off some of the restaurant's antique pieces during service. It will also give the kitchen some breathing space, keeping diners happy and occupied while they wait between courses. A nervous Gordon prepares for the relaunch by once again reviewing the basics with Chef Phil. The staff gathers, ready to serve a full dining room of 48 covers, and even Laura reappears to lend a hand. The invited guests begin to arrive, including some local soap opera actresses and footballers' wives and girlfriends, known in the UK as wags. Orders start coming in, but one ticket has gone missing. Laura steps in to retake the order. Sandy begins the antique auction and encourages Gordon to make a bid, causing laughter from the customers, who are eager to get involved. The kitchen continues to send out dishes, and Phil manages to keep his concentration, helped by a handy reminder written on the wall. The diners are happy, and Phil has managed to keep standards high, helped by his talented sous chef. Sandy made more than £500 in just 15 minutes selling her antiques, and the management of the restaurant has been smooth. The relaunch was a complete success. A month later, Gordon revisits the restaurant. But first, he stops at another local eatery to meet Chef Phil, who is no longer employed at Morgan's. Phil reveals that after receiving a number of complaints, Helen had fired him from Morgan's. He's now taken a role as a sous chef and has the opportunity to train under an experienced head chef, which Gordon believes is a better position for him. Gordon heads back to the restaurant, where he's greeted by all three women. He's happy to find out that the sous chef has now been promoted to head chef, and the owners are at how she's taken to the role. Taking a moment with Helen and a spreadsheet of the restaurant's accounts, Gordon is relieved to see that the business is now making a profit. Before Gordon arrived, the restaurant took only £1,500 a week, but takings have now hit almost £4,000. Sitting down to dinner, Gordon samples the new head chef's addition to his menu, braised beef and mash. A smiling Chef Ramsay can't believe the difference from the last meal he had at the same table. When it's time to say goodbye, Gordon wishes the girls luck. It's a neighborhood restaurant with an all-female team, and it's working well. The Morgan's episode of Kitchen Nightmares was aired in December 2006, 7 months after filming, and was rated 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Highlights for viewers included the sticky toffee pudding saga, starting with the love with which the sous chef made her sticky toffee pudding, to the scathing hatred of the dish from head chef Phil, and a clearly impressed Gordon as he ate it. And of course, Phil's face when Gordon gave him his feedback was the icing on the sticky toffee cake. There was a lot of support for Helen in her handling of her sister, as well as the restaurant. Laura was described as both pretty and pretty spoiled, and many wondered whether the family relationships could stay intact following Gordon's visit. Her playground meltdown was one of the best moments for many viewers, who loved the fact that she was literally sitting on her mother's lap on a swing before her spoiled princess tantrum. So what happened to the restaurant, the family, and the staff after Gordon's visit? Well, as we saw when Gordon visited a month later, the new head chef had great ideas for the restaurant and was confident about the new menu. Things were looking good. But very soon after the episode aired, the family discovered that the restaurant may be a target for criminal gangs in the area. This led owner Sandy to install cameras around the restaurant and organize protection for staff leaving the restaurant from the local police force. It's hard to imagine such a warm and welcoming restaurant being the focus of criminal activity, but it must have been a very worrying time for them all. Whether it was triggered by this concern for their safety or continued financial pressures, Sandy advertised the restaurant for sale for just under £100,000 in February 2007. In November of that year, it was sold, just 18 months after Gordon's visit, but 12 months later than Sandy expected it to close without his help. A month after the closure of Morgan's, a new restaurant, Odd Fellows, opened in the building and received solid reviews. Sadly, it too closed in 2010. In 2011, the restaurant reopened as Caveau, offering authentic French cuisine prepared using fresh produce with contemporary flavors. The restaurant was given a number of awards, including a Best Newcomer award soon after it opened. And the reviews were mainly excellent, leading it to achieve a 4 out of 5 TripAdvisor rating. The restaurant was thriving and stayed in the same location for 13 years, building up a loyal fan base. Yet, in January 2024, following the restaurant's closure due to a gas leak, the owner hung up his chef's hat and shut the restaurant completely. As far as we know, the building is not in use anymore. But what happened to the team behind Morgan's when the restaurant closed? Let's start with head chef Philip. Just 3 days after Morgan's episode aired, Chef Phil was jailed for check fraud. It turned out he had been stealing from previous employers. As we saw when Gordon visited a month after filming, Philip had secured a new job as sous chef at the Blue Bar in Liverpool's fashionable Albert Dock area. Unfortunately for his new mentor, the first thing his colleagues knew of his incarceration was when he failed to come into work one Monday morning. That was because he'd begun his 3-month stint in jail. He'd been stealing and cashing checks from the restaurants he had worked at prior to joining Morgan's. Suddenly, Sandy's messy home desk, far away from the restaurant kitchen, doesn't look like such a bad place to store those checkbooks. In 2016, Philip was working as head chef at Breda & Company, a bustling fine dining bistro in the city center. It was designed to bring a little New York style and flavor to Liverpool, and reviews were good. The menu featured some delicious-looking desserts, including sticky toffee pudding. It seems that maybe Phil's experience at Morgan's did teach him something. Sadly, the restaurant closed in 2017, and Phil hasn't updated his profile since then. But it seems he enjoyed his Kitchen Nightmares experience, despite the run-ins with Gordon. Let's move on to hard-working restaurant manager Helen. She married her partner in a beautiful ceremony and has 3 adorable little boys. Her social media is packed with happy family photos, and over the years, she's obviously devoted herself to being a wife and mother. In 2020, she launched a new business called Hodgepodge, and yes, it's food-related. The company produces grazing boards and platters of organic and locally sourced food designed to bring people together. The reviews are great, and the food looks beautiful. We wish her lots of luck for the future. But what has happened to Helen's sister, Laura, since the show? Laura has also settled down with a long-term partner. In February 2022, she shared photos and video of his proposal, which she happily accepted. It seems they are still based in Woolton, and the engagement took place at a local restaurant. But is she still working in the restaurant industry? No, she's not. Laura is now an actress, and she's had some limited success. She rocked her role as a biker chick in a 2018 McDonald's advertisement for the Tennessee Stack Burger.
A Tennessee-style barbecue sauce.
Oh yeah.
Coming?
Yeah, let's go.
It seems she had a few minor roles on stage and TV before she worked at Morgan's. but it looks like she has more significant feature film roles coming soon. She clearly experienced some negative feedback about pursuing her dreams of stardom, as she shared a feisty post about achieving her professional registration. Laura appears to be fully committed to her new occupation, as she continues to study her art, taking a 10-week course in 2024 at the local drama academy to improve her skills, and help her to find more acting roles in the future. But did the closure of the restaurant give the sisters the space they needed to fix their relationship? Well, it certainly looks like it helped. In 2021, Laura posted a beautiful tribute to her sister, and Helen replied, sending lots of love right back. We're so happy to see them doing better. And how about the business owner and mom, Sandy? Immediately after filming, Sandy admitted to being excited but nervous about the show being aired. Having originally turned down the offer of help from Gordon, they spent 50 hours filming with him, which gave them plenty of time to ask for his advice. After the restaurant closure of her restaurant, Sandy went back to her first love, selling antiques, and opened a new store on the same street as the Morgans building. But instead of calling it Morgans, she took the name Odd Fellows from the restaurant that had followed hers. She obviously picked up a few tips from Gordon's visit, copying his tactic of getting local celebrities to attend the opening in 2015. Over the following years, Sandy shared a number of pictures showing her happy and enjoying time with her partner, friends, and family, including both daughters. She also posted many pictures with her grandchildren, who she obviously adored. Sadly, in May 2023, Sandy passed away. Her obituary was shared by her heartbroken daughters. Laura took to Facebook a few months later, on Sandy's birthday, to share another beautiful tribute to her mama bear. We are so sorry for the family's loss and send them best wishes for everything they do in the future.